Hi, everyone. I'm Jeff Kupfer. I'm the president of ConservAmerica. We're thrilled to be joined today by Representative Andrew Garbarino. He represents New York's 2nd Congressional District, which he has done since 2021. That district is on Long Island, where Congressman has lived his entire life. He's a native Long Islander. Before joining the U.S. Congress, he served 4 terms in the New York State Assembly. He is a member of a number of different caucuses. One of them is the Roosevelt Conservation Caucus, which is a caucus that's supported by our organization, ConservAmerica. It's a group of members who are looking at durable, market-based solutions to the country's energy, environmental, conservation challenges. The congressman is also one of the co-chairs of the Climate Solutions Caucus. He's also on the Conservative Climate Caucus and the Problem Solvers Caucus. And so, Congressman, glad that you're able to be with us today. And I'd like to ask you how you got involved in the different caucuses that you're a part of, especially the ones that I just mentioned.
Well, thank you, Jeff, for having me. I'm glad to be here. And yeah, it's the caucuses. A lot of these when you join Congress, people ask you to sign into a caucus, and there's not much else you have to do other than that. I've somehow found myself signing up for caucuses where we do a lot of work and a lot of discussion on policy. Problem Solvers was the first one I joined. It just seemed like a great fit for someone like me, who, as you heard, 8 years in the state assembly. I was in the extreme minority, so anything I wanted to do as a Republican, I needed to work with the other side. Tom Reed, Brian Fitzpatrick, Dave Joyce, and others were members when I first got into Congress, so they convinced me that Problem Solvers was a good place to start. And since then, I've joined, like you said, the Roosevelt Caucus. My good friend Andy Sabin, who I fish with a bunch, he brought that one to my attention. And the Climate Solutions Caucus. This is one that I co-chair, and very happy to do so. And excited to see how much it's grown in the 4 years I've been in Congress. Congressman Dave Joyce, who's the co-chair of the ICCF, International Conservation Caucus Foundation, he's the co-chair of that one of those caucuses. They had asked him to do it, to take over, but he was so busy that he had suggested myself to former member Carlos Cabello and J.P. Chavez and Senator Mary Landrieu, who handles the foundation side. They suggested my name. I had several meetings with them. It's working on the environment, protecting the environment, working on, as you said, market-based solutions for our country's energy needs, our climate concerns. Is definitely something I'm interested in. I met with them. I took over as chair, and then up until about last year, our number one goal was to bring the caucus up to full strength. That was to really recruit Republicans, because there were a lot of Democrats in it. A lot of Republicans who were members of that caucus lost in 2018. So we wanted to bring it up to parity. And happy to say now we have 66 total members, 33 Republicans, 33 Democrats, as the makeup of the Climate Solutions Caucus. And it's been a lot of hard work, but now we're starting to focus on policy, which is very exciting.
Yeah, well, it's a testament to your hard work and your effectiveness to be able to do that. One of the other caucuses that you're a part of is the Conservative Climate
Oh yeah.
Caucus. And so I'd like you to talk a little bit, not necessarily about that caucus per se, but about how you see Republicans being engaged on not just climate, but other clean energy or conservation issues. And during your time in Congress, if you've seen some of the views or some of the engagement evolve over that time.
Absolutely. John Curtis, soon to be senator. I'm going to miss him, but I'm very excited for him. It's going to be great to have a partner, especially on these issues, another partner in the Senate, especially with Senator Braun retiring. He was the head of the Senate Republican side of the Climate Caucus. So hopefully, John will be able to hit the ground running there. But, John is a member of my caucus, the Climate Solutions Caucus. I'm a member of his caucus. which is now, I think, Marionette Miller Meeks's caucus, because he gave up leadership. But his goal and his creation of the Conservative Climate Caucus, was really to educate Republican members of our conference, that to be good on climate issues isn't necessarily mean that doesn't mean you're a Democrat or a rhino. You can be a conservative and be good on climate issues, and look forward and be reasonable and find market-based solutions. And so his goal, and it was very successful, was to really educate members. And after he did that, hopefully we would recruit some of those members into my caucus, which then would focus on policy. So he was very successful in that. That's why we were able to build our numbers up. A lot of members who originally part of the Conservative Climate Caucus, we then recruited to join our caucus as well, the Climate Solutions Caucus. And it would not have been possible without Curtis's great work. Like I said, I'm definitely going to miss him, but it's great. It's great that he'll be in the Senate working on these issues, because we really need his expertise on them.
And while we're talking about Republicans and House Republicans' involvement in climate and other issues, you led a effort for a letter that was signed by you and 17 of your colleagues, so 18 House Republicans, first part of August, that went to Speaker Johnson about the Inflation Reduction Act. And in that letter, you noted that you urged the speaker to prioritize business and market certainty as you consider efforts to repeal and reform the Inflation Reduction Act. So can you just talk a little bit about what prompted you and your colleagues to write such a letter?
Yeah. Well, as you can imagine, my role as co-chair of the Climate Solutions Caucus brings a lot of different industry and people into my office for meetings, as well as my role as the chair of cyber and infrastructure protection. We get a lot of industry people come in. And one thing I've heard from everyone, whether it's energy, manufacturing, healthcare, pretty much any industry there is, financial services, there's never any, they can't, these are companies. They can't change their plans every 2 years if Congress flips. They need more certainty. They need, and for them to put in good climate policy, they need to be able to plan 10, 20, 30 years down the road, because they are investing hundreds of millions to billions of dollars on projects. So, you can't ask a company to start doing one project and 2 years later pull the rug out from underneath them, because leadership in the House or the Senate has changed. It's why like I said before, that's why I'm a member of the Problem Solvers Caucus, for bipartisan work. It's why I'm so supportive of my caucus, the Climate Solutions Caucus, because of our bipartisan work. To really win and be successful on the climate issue, we need to have bipartisan legislation that can really give these companies, in all these different industries, a pathway forward, something to rely on. So, right now with the IRA, yeah, it was a partisan bill, and I would vote against it again tomorrow, because there was a lot of bad stuff in it. But there's the existence of tax credits that were put in the IRA, and you're seeing a lot of investment all over the country, from many different sectors, whether it's nuclear, manufacturing, in the farm. In Iowa, there's a big investment going on. You have geothermal, you have EVs, you have the mining for certain minerals, you have minerals, you have carbon capture projects that are hydrogen projects, all these things that are starting to move forward, and jobs are being created and billions are being invested. And that's because of the existence of these credits, and you're seeing some benefit. So the letter, and it's why myself and 17 of my Republican colleagues sent it, was because right now you have people saying repeal the IRA completely, repeal the IRA completely, repeal the IRA completely. And I'm trying to say, well, let's have a discussion first. Let's talk about these tax credits, because maybe it's worthwhile keeping some. It's let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater here. You're seeing heavy investment. You're seeing these things actually be put use in the United States and creating and good jobs in the United States. So let's, if we're going to focus on a reconciliation package, which the speaker has told the current certain chairman to do of certain committees, then if you're going to focus on that now, let's talk about some of these because some of them should stay. And I was happy to have 17 colleagues, and not just moderates. A lot of some of my colleagues that signed on were from conservative areas who are either seeing the investment happen in their districts, or they at least think that we should have a conversation about this. They think that companies or industry should have the opportunity to come in and be heard before we just say, all right, it's all gone.
And one of the points you make in the letter is you say a full repeal would create a worst case scenario where we as a country would have spent billions of taxpayer dollars and
Yeah.
received next to nothing in return.
Yeah, absolutely. There's already been money been spent, and then all of a sudden we start pulling things. We start pulling all these credits away. Companies are going to pull out of what they're doing, and then there's nothing to show for it. It would be a disaster. So look, I get it. There are awful policies in the IRA, and we should get rid of them and start over with a lot of those. But let's have this discussion before we say get rid of it all.
And the letter itself talks about energy tax credits in general. You don't start to get into specific credits that were part of the IRA, of which there were many. How do you think about looking at those credits, prioritizing if one needs to get there? What, if anything, should be some principles that should be important in considering this moving forward?
Well, look, for me, I mean, it could be different for some of the other signers. Some signers are like I said, are already seeing heavy investment in their districts, whether that's through wind or solar or manufacturing. I know Congressman Carter and Amadei have big investments going on in their districts, but there are other members who don't have anything happening in their district directly, but they might see the benefit of having these. So if we're going to look at these credits on an individual basis, and I don't want to list out because I don't want to negotiate against myself and the rest of the members as to what we should keep and what we shouldn't. I think industry is going to have to come in and fight for the ones that they want to stay. But you're going to want to look at the cost. You're going to look at what's happened with investment, the return on jobs, the return on salaries, where the money's actually being spent, where the technology is. A lot of these credits come with are in certain areas where the technology is not there yet, but with this investment in R&D on some of these possible climate reducing or carbon reducing technologies, we could be there in 10 years. We could be there, and we could do it on a very cost effective basis. But there's got to be that investment now in R&D. I think when you're looking at them, they should be judged on what they've done so far, what's being used, return on investment, and there's some other things, but those are definitely top line issues that you want to look at. And all the 18 members who signed on to the letter might not agree on every single one, but we all agree that the discussion needs to happen, and that's why we sent the letter to the speaker. Because he's the one who directed 6 or 7 different chairs to start working on a possible reconciliation package. And if that's going to happen, the IRA credits have to be part of that discussion.
Right. And obviously, you all are in recess right now, so you're not necessarily back in DC talking with all your colleagues on a day-to-day basis. But since the letter's been sent, what sort of reaction have you received from leadership, colleagues, outside stakeholders?
Well, listen, I mean, my chief has said so many people have called the office thanking us for putting the letter out, for leading the letter. I know my colleagues who signed the letter have heard the same. People were worried that this was just going to get pulled, the rug was going to get pulled out from underneath them without even having an opportunity to talk about the benefits of the credits that they're using. So we've heard a lot on that. A couple of my colleagues in the Freedom Caucus, I think they tweeted about the letter. Again, some of them aren't willing to even learn about what's going on with this stuff, so I take that with a grain of salt. But some of them won't be back next year either already. So we're hearing about that. But leadership was receptive. I spoke to them, let them know we had the letter and it was coming. I'm sure, they weren't thrilled that it was sent, but, they were also said, thank you very much. And, we understand that a lot of these are very important and they're willing to have a discussion with us. And I imagine when we get back, I don't think this will move in September, but after the election in November, when we find out if Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House, these conversations are going to heat up very quickly. And so it was very important to put the letter out now. It's pretty much putting our marker out there. Like, look, hey, the majority is probably not going to be 18 seats. It's probably not going to be 10 seats. And there's 18 of us that want us to talk about these. And by the way, it was more than 18. There are a lot of there are some of my colleagues that wanted to sign the letter, but didn't, because of the committee they sit on that. But they definitely feel the same way the signatories of the letter do. So I'd say the number is actually higher than 18.
Okay. Well, certainly be a big topic of discussion as we get into the next Congress and as all the other tax provisions, not necessarily related to energy, expire and need to be considered next year. So we'll see where that goes. In terms of other legislation and things that may be considered in the remainder of this Congress, even in a potential lame duck session, is permitting reform, something that I know you've been looking at and been a supporter of over the years. Right before the August recess, the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee passed by a 15-4, pretty overwhelming bipartisan vote, a bill that had been developed by Chairman Manchin, Ranking Member Barrasso, on permitting reform. And there's a whole bunch of different provisions in there. Can you talk a little bit about what you think of that effort and what prospects you see for that in the House for later this year?
Listen, I do think if something passes, it could be on permitting reform. Manchin was made that promise. He's now retiring, so I hope he moves it. I think there'll be a need to move something in the Senate right now, because the House has sent a lot over to the Senate and nothing has moved over there. So I don't know what leadership will be willing to give time to. I don't want to say waste because it's not a waste, but there's only so many days we're left. We're there, and I think they would need to see something on the Senate side that a bill would pass. Not to mention we have members in the House that are leaving that I guarantee you want to see permit reform. Whether it's the chairwoman, she's leaving of ENC. Garrett Graves is retiring. I know he has always worked on permit reform. We have other members. This is the permit reform. Permit reform was the biggest thing that the Climate Solutions Caucus wanted to see. Scott Peters on the Democratic side has been a great leader there. So if we can actually get something done, something more than we got done last year when they negotiated some of the fixes, I could see there being an appetite in the House, but I don't think we'll be the leader on it right now because of everything else that we've passed and has just gotten, they call it the graveyard of Charles Schumer's desk. So hopefully, I think seeing something move out of the Senate is going to be something we'll need to see. I would think there would have to be some sort of lawsuit reform as part of that, and I'm not exactly positive if Chairman Manchin's bill touches that as much as our caucus has been looking at it. So, again, we'd like to see something move. I don't know if we'll take up a standalone bill. That's up to leadership, but I'm sure both sides of the aisle would like to see something get done because it has to get done.
Yeah, and along those lines, I was going to ask you. I mean, there's plenty of Democrats who say, "Hey, doing permanent reform is this particular type of permitting reform is giving away too much to the oil and gas industry or the fossil fuel industry." There's some on the Republican side who say, "Look, if we do this, we're giving away too much in terms of electricity." Permitting to support renewables. I mean, how do you respond to sort of that criticism from both sides on an issue
Well,
like
it
that?
sounds like a perfect situation for a nice bipartisan bill. The people in the middle to come together and say, "Hey, oh look, okay. By the way, natural gas and fossil fuels are part of the discussion. So are renewables. So is nuclear. So is carbon. So is all this. But unfortunately, we can't move any of it forward without uh, at least we can move it forward, but it won't be successful if we don't have this permit reform. Money is just it's just a disaster how long these projects take to get moving, and the lawsuits to stop them. There's a lot of cases you don't even the standing element is ridiculous. There's a lot that has to be done, and there are Republicans and Democrats that are working together. I know Chrissy Houlihan, who's my co-chair, Democrat from Pennsylvania, she's been great on the issue. Scott Peters, as I said, Congresswoman Miller Meeks, Congressman Garrett Graves. I think there is, and if the Senate can get a bill out 15-4, I think we could probably do something on the House side as well, similarly bipartisan.
Okay, well, the permitting reform issue has certainly been decades in the making in terms of the mess that it currently is, and so it's not going to get fixed overnight either. I mean, there's going to be a lot of efforts, and seems like a good place to start. So,
Hey, but when you talk about taking a long time, every week in DC was infrastructure week until we passed the bipartisan infrastructure bill. So, we've been able to show that we've been able to be successful working on bipartisan legislation. I think permit reform really could be low-hanging fruit. Just have to have the political courage to get it done.
okay. Well, that's a good way to wrap up. You've been very generous with your time. We appreciate it, Congressman, and we look forward to working with you and your colleagues on all these important issues in the future.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.